Hello everyone, welcome to another tutorial. Today I wanted to talk about WSUS, so Windows updates. We'll try to configure everything according to some guidelines that I have prepared. So I have here the document from which we will be getting all the information. So first of all, maybe I'm gonna show the document. So it looks like this. And here are all the preparations that need to be done. So basically our WSUS management is gonna be configured with SQL Server because on the internet, from what I've seen, many people, when they try to install WSUS, they use the VID database, which is very faulty, and especially when you have more than 50 or even 80 workstations on WSUS that are updated daily, then you're gonna have a lot of errors because the VID database is very buggy. It's quite hard to maintain sometimes and too many errors in general, so I haven't seen too many tutorials showing how you can actually install and prepare the SQL Server database, so we're gonna base on SQL today. So the main thing is we're gonna start the installation. We're gonna install them all the requested stuff plus the extensions. Then we're gonna configure our SQL Server. Here I have like a couple of also a couple of pictures that are gonna represent what kind of things we should actually choose during the installation and configuration. So before we actually start any installs, I'm just gonna check my second server because I have a second server here. So this is my second server, and on this server I'm gonna have my WSUS because Windows updates services. This particular thing needs to be on a separate server because it takes a lot of memory. It also takes quite a lot of disk space, so bear in mind that my disk space is just a default one, very small one, so I will need to add another disk, and on this disk I will actually perform the install on WSUS, and then I'm gonna also install here my SQL database. So ideal configuration, you would have additional maybe one or two more disks, and on one disk you would have WSUS. Here you would have your Windows, and here on the third one you would have SQL database installed. So everything has its own space. Remember not to install Windows updates on this Windows Update services on the domain controller, because the domain controller has quite a lot of different things to do. If you configure DNS, domain controller, and DHCP, that's quite enough. I wouldn't suggest installing this WSUS on your server where you have all of those services already running, because you might just run out of memory or have some other issues that are gonna persist, and you're gonna have just a bunch of scrambled eggs instead of just working or a fast working service. So okay, so as you can see, we have this server. I'm gonna add it to the domain because it hasn't been added yet. So we're gonna change this. We're gonna add this to the domain. Okay, so this server has been added to the domain. We're gonna restart, and we're gonna check on my main server. Let's go to DHCP. We're gonna see if the lease is active, scope, addresses and leases, and here is my computer, and it has a reservation made for it. So in the reservations we have my backup server, so the one that is gonna be hosting SUS. Okay, so we can scratch this for now. So let's go to the server. Let's check here. So another guideline that you will need to follow as well. You would need to open two ports. For HTTP connections, you have to open port 8530, and for HTTPS, you will need to open port 8533. So just bear in mind that if you have a firewall, and probably you have one, you will need to open those two ports, the firewall, for good connectivity. And of course, it depends on you. If you want to configure SUS through HTTP, you're gonna use this port. If you want to configure SUS with HTTPS, you will need this port. Of course, later on, when all the installation and preparations are gonna be done, we're gonna configure everything with SUS. Then I'm gonna show you also how to configure HTTPS connection on SUS, because there is quite a lot of things to be done. Okay, so let's get back to our SUS server. So it's gonna be this one. I already have downloaded SQL 2022, so the newest one, of course, evaluation, and SSMS as well, because that is gonna be required as well. But before we're gonna do anything here, I just need to add one more disk. I'm gonna shut down the machine for now, because I need to add additional disk here for hosting SUS. So here I'm gonna add a disk. I'm gonna choose this one. Let's start. So just bear in mind that before you actually, if you're planning to have SUS, you need to prepare everything before you even begin to install different things. You have to plan it out. Okay, so let's check. I'm gonna eject this. Let's go here, and this is my another disk named SUS. And here I'm gonna have my SQL. I just need to scratch. Maybe I will just do format, quick format. Okay, so first of all, on here I'm gonna create two folders. One is gonna be called SUS, where SUS is gonna be hosted, and like I said, in ideal configuration, I would have another disk just for my SQL. But since I don't have that much space on my hard drive for virtual machines, I'm just gonna have to create one here. I'm gonna create one here. I'm gonna also put here all the SQL database logs and everything alongside SUS. Okay, so we got those basic things prepared here. So we can start with the installation of SQL on this server. I just want to check here. Assigned, that's great. Okay, the IP address is assigned. That's okay. Okay, so we're gonna choose basic, of course, or maybe we can do custom. We will do custom maybe. Yes, and we're gonna change this, of course, the location of the database. Okay, and we're gonna do install. And since this is gonna take a little bit of time, because as you can see, it needs to download everything, so I will just pause the video and I will be back with you shortly when all of this is done. Okay, so as you can see, the download was successful, and now we're gonna commence with the installation. So we're gonna do install. We're gonna choose new SQL server. Okay, of course, the evaluation. We're gonna accept the terms. Of course, recommended updates. So I'm gonna uncheck this. And here is the main configuration site. So let's check. We're gonna use database engine services and SQL server replication. Full text and semantic. And client tools connectivity. Well, seems like we don't have that here. Let's check. Okay. Client tools, backwards compatibility, tools SDK, SQL client connectivity SDK. Okay, so let's see. No shared features, and we don't have this in shared features, so just gonna take those three and data quality client, integration services, master data services. So here is the default root directory of our SQL. I'm gonna leave it for now on default because I could of course change it to here. So we downloaded the evaluation here, the installation. So for now I'm just gonna change it on default, leave it on default. If you want to change it, you can always pick different paths, so you won't have to do it later on. Okay, named instance, I'm gonna change that. DDR. So it's gonna be synonymous with my domain. And we have here SQL Server Agent. I'm gonna change that to automatic. And the rest is left on automatic as well. Only the full text filter is manual. I'm gonna choose here password. And I will need to add an administrator account. So let's check. So I created an admin account in my domain. So I'm gonna add this account here. And there we go. This is the full overview of the summary of our options that we chose. And of course here is the main path for the configuration file ini. So we're gonna wait a little bit until it finishes. So the next step after this would be, of course, opening those ports. Well, in my case, I don't have to do it because on this server I got firewall that is basically turned off. So as you can see, everything is turned off except for the private network. Can turn that off as well. Real-time protection is off as well. So everything is turned off, so I don't need to add those ports because the connectivity is gonna be allowed anyway. Of course, in your environment you will have to include those two ports. The second step that we will take after the installation here is done, we'll need to then install management tools, and after that, when everything is set up, we can log into our SQL Server Manager and check the connectivity to the database. When everything here will be configured, we can proceed with configuration of a web server and WSUS. So we're gonna install IIS and also WSUS service. Of course, during the installation of our web server, the IIS server, we need to remember about net framework, because that's really important. Of course, this is a picture of a net framework 3.5 and 4.6, probably from older Windows Server versions, because the Windows Server 2022 version has ASP.NET 4.8, if I'm correct. but the general options are the same. So it's almost finished. So, like I said before, you can change the default paths of the SQL, the server database, and everything else. In the beginning, when you actually do this install, you can choose a different path to a different disk, hard drive to a different hard drive. Of course, you can do it afterwards as well. When you install everything, log into to your manager, SQL manager, connect to your database, then you can also change it. So it's up to you, how do you want to do it. I strongly suggest keeping SQL in a different location than the default one, where the Windows files reside. So okay, let's go here for a moment. Let's check Active Directory users and computers. So as you can see, I've created a additional organizational unit called WSUS, where I can move all of the workstations and servers that I want to be that I want to have the updates done to. So I can basically move all of them. So I have this backup server as well here, so I'm gonna move this backup server to WSUS. And here I have Windows 10 test computer, which I will also move to WSUS. Okay, so the installation has succeeded. Now what we need to do, install those additional things. So the Management Studio. Oh, I still have quite a lot of disk space here, so it's fine. Okay, so let's also check some group policy management. So here's our forest, our domains, DDR local, Here's our SUS, where I have all my current PCs. The domain controller, of course. So I will check. Let's check domain controllers. That's fine. Basically, I can even move this to Windows 10, because probably I will be able to link the GPO either way once it's created. I can link it here, I can link it here. Okay, so now we're gonna check how it's going. Well, now it needs restart, so I'm gonna restart. Okay, so this is done. So let's check. Server management. Let's connect. After the restart, we need to pull first. We need to put on our feet those services because they went down after the restart. Then we're gonna be able to connect to our database. Okay, so let's see what do we have here. So SQL Server. I'm gonna change that to automatic agent. Server browser. It's an automatic, that's fine. Full text. It's manual, gonna change to automatic as well. That's fine. Okay. Basically, you need to change all of those to automatic. Without the delayed start. So, okay, so this is running. Got our services up. Now we can let's sign out. Let's change to admin. I'm gonna change here and we're gonna see. Okay. Yeah, so all I needed to do was just to change, because I was still on my local administrator account, and I used for the authentication, of course, my domain admin account, so I had to log in as admin to connect to the database, and I should be running everything from that point on this particular as this particular user. Okay, so we have connected to our database. We can go here to properties, see general, processes, security processes, memory, connections, database settings. So in database settings, as you can see, you got data, logs, and backup. And here are all the basic paths that you can actually change if you want to a different location. Okay, we got here, of course, the permissions. Maximum server memory. Okay, so and security, what do we have in security? We got SQL Server and Windows authentication setup. Okay, let's check databases. A new database, we can attach a database, restore, filters, server agent, of course, for different jobs. If you want to maintain this SQL server properly. Server objects. What do we have in policies? View, evaluate. Last evaluation, never, okay. And activity monitor. So this is the main thing, processes that are running, data file, database. Alright, so basically we can actually close this down. Next thing we're gonna do is, of course, now we're gonna go to add roles and features. Gonna choose next. Gonna choose our backup server, and here we will need to install Windows Server Update Services, and of course the web server. So as we can see, let's just take a look here. So we got Net Framework and Next Framework 4.6. So everything is ticked. So we will do the same thing. I will also add all of those features. Okay, let's TCP activation, that's fine. So we got all of them, fine. And we can commence with the installation. Of course, we're not choosing VID connectivity, but the SQL Server connectivity. Next, we need to add the path where we're gonna store our updates. And of course our path is here. Now we need to check the connection to our database. So we're gonna just open the database. We're gonna copy this. That's the name of the database. I'm gonna paste it here. Check connectivity. Successfully connected to the server. Okay, we are here on the web server. We're gonna leave those things on default. We're gonna choose those options. Do you need to specify an alternate source path? Well, we're not gonna specify anything like that. Of course, we're gonna restart everything after the installation is done. So now we are after this configuration. Next step that we're gonna take in our configuration, we have to choose products and specifications. So after, when we're gonna be configuring WSUS, those Windows updates services, we'll need to check for which kind of Windows version we would like to have updates done. Of course, you can check like different things from the list here for Microsoft Office or for Azure or for many different things, as you will see in a moment. But for now, since I only have a server here, and that's the newest server from 2022, and I have a workstation that has, I think if I remember correctly, 21H2. So I will only select few of those options. So in regards to Windows Server 2022 updates from WSUS, I also gathered some information about it. Which options you should choose in WSUS to get the updates for the newest server edition. So maybe let's open this. So basically what the Microsoft is saying, and it was in November, posted in November 2021, so quite a long time ago, how to get the updates. So basically they are saying here that you need to choose in products Microsoft Server Operating System 21H2 if you want to receive the newest updates for Windows Server 2022. So we'll need to check this option in products, and of course in classification you need to choose security updates. So we're gonna wait a little bit longer here until this finishes. And let's check what's else. And from what I've gathered from the Internet SQL Server updates for SQL 2022, The SQL Server team stopped distributing SQL updates via WSUS a long time ago. You need to manually download and install SQL updates. So, yeah, that's not too reassuring, because it means that you need to dabble in the updates yourself. Just you need to go to Windows Updates website or the Microsoft Update catalog and then choose all the updates manually and install them. Although, if I remember correctly, if you had SQL Server 2019, you still could choose the option to get updates. So maybe something changed in SQL Server 2022, because from 19 to 22 it's like a lot of time, so maybe really they just stopped releasing those updates. Okay, so as you can see, all the features are installed and the configuration is required, so we're gonna close this down. We got IIS, we got WSUS. I'm gonna go here, launch post installation pack. Okay, so we're gonna configure that. Let's wait a moment. Okay, so that's gonna take a moment here. Let's go to the domain controller. I'm gonna refresh this. And as you can see, we got here Windows updates. Never check for updates, because if you remember, we actually disabled Windows updates here. So using sconfig, we configured our main server, our domain controller, not to get any updates until we actually agree to install them manually. Okay, so configuration required, installation succeeded. Okay, so everything is done here. Close this down. So now we can go to tools, and we got Windows Server update services, of course, here. Okay, let's check. So we're gonna go now to our WSUS and we're gonna start configuring. So this is the basic configuration. And I'm gonna take this option, and here we have like synchronize from Microsoft Update. So it's gonna synchronize with Microsoft Update and pull down all the links required to then pull down all the updates that you're gonna choose. Or you can synchronize with another Windows Server update services. So if you have WSUS somewhere else, you can synchronize this server with another WSUS instance. So if I had another server with WSUS installed, here's the port number, of course, 5330, 8530. So it's HTTP. If it would be 31, it would be HTTPS. You can of course use SSL if you want to. So you would need to just put the server name here. Of course, we're gonna choose this because this is gonna be our main WSUS instance with this service. Not using any proxies. And basically now I'm gonna pause the video because this is gonna take a long time. Usually it takes about 30 minutes to an hour. So I'm just gonna start connecting, and it's gonna pull down some links from the Windows update from Microsoft. So I'll be here when it's done. So we're gonna commence. Okay, so it's still working, but before it actually uh, connects with everything, I'm gonna show you a few different things regarding SQL. Because like I said, the updates may not be present in the WSUS for your SQL. So you can always visit this website, sqlserverupdates.com. So let's open the website. So here you can manage all the most recent updates for your SQL server. Pretty handy site with the and support dates, build numbers. So everything is here if you need to download the most recent updates for your SQL. And another thing I wanted to show is, of course, a little bit of maybe like dangling with the SQL that you actually installed. So let's go down somewhere around configuration, and we can also enable network configuration. We can enable TCP/IP. So let's check SQL Server configuration. It is going to be SQL Server network configuration. So here, protocols for DDR. So for our domain name, as we can see, TCP/IP is already enabled here. So we don't need to enable it. Of course, firewall rules, because if you want to connect from another server, you will need to enable TCP/IP protocol. So if you want to connect to this database of SQL from another computer, you need to enable this feature, and you need to also allow inbound connections. You need to allow SQL Server traffic into the Windows firewall. So either through Windows firewall if it's up, or through your own firewall protections. You will need to enable those ports. So this is SQL Server TCP port 1433. Applies to the default instance. If you have multiple instances, you will have to manually set up port number in SQL Server Configuration Manager. SQL Server dedicated admin connection. So this is 1434. Then you have SQL Server Browser, UDP connection, SQL Server Message Broker, TCP connection. This is used for mirroring and used for debugger. So there you go. These are the most important ports. Size the tempdb files. Databases, system databases. So this would require us to go into the manager. I'm gonna close this down. So we got the databases, right? Let's see, system databases. Okay, so here are our databases, master database, right? Let's choose properties. Got files. Okay, so we got the primary owner, master database, of course where it is located, the path to your MDF, master MDF and LDF. File groups, options, what do we have here in options? Compatibility level, should change that as well always to the newest one. If you have SQL Server 2022, change that. Of course, coalition, you can change the coalition. The default one is SQL Latin 1. Containment type, that's not from a recovery model simple. Permissions, of course. Extended properties. So it's for the master, but they wanted us to go to tempdb. Add as many tempdb data files as your number of logical processors, up to 8. You can add multiple drives if you want to spread tempdb across several volumes. The default size of the data and log files are on the tiny side, so scale them up to what you think you'll need. Well, you can always do this as well. So there we go. I'm not gonna mangle and tangle with it. But like I said, SQL Server Updates.com, very useful site for you. And of course you can use SQLSunday.com. They have a lot of different articles about how you can actually improve your work with SQL servers. Let's check. Well, it's still going, so I'm just gonna pause the video again. Okay, so everything is done. We can move to another window. So here we are gonna download updates only in these languages. So we're gonna pick the language in which we're gonna download the updates. So here we have selected English language, of course. And here is the product selection. So like I said, it's quite an extensive list. You'll have to decide which products you actually want to choose from here to be downloaded. Or I should say it differently, for which product you want the updates to be downloaded. Of course, we have Office 2016, SharePoint. Like I said, oh, there we go, we have Microsoft SQL Server. So, and I thought we will have to base only on the website. So I guess it wasn't really true, which is very good because you can just download all the required updates from to SUS and then apply it to your SQL as well. But it's good to also have the website if you need it. So now let us look for Microsoft Server Operating System 21H2. So we will need to choose this option. You can untick all of this. Okay, it's gonna be Azure Stack. So it should be somewhere up here. There we go. Operating system 21H2. So supposedly, according to Microsoft, if you take this on, you will receive updates to your newest server 2022. Okay, so of course, what else can we have here? That Windows Server 2019, of course, Windows Server versions, and let's check maybe Windows 10 versions 19 and later. Okay, so this Windows 10, and I think that's gonna be enough for me because I only have two machines here, so I have a workstation on Windows 10 and the servers. Of course, here we are gonna choose also critical updates, definition updates, and security updates. So without the upgrades, I'm gonna choose only those three for now. And now the synchronization. So we either gonna synchronize everything manually or we can synchronize automatically. So I'm gonna choose manual synchronization. And we can take this for begin initial synchronization, which is gonna take quite a lot of time. So for now, I'm not gonna choose the option. And we're gonna finish. And there we go. Here's our SUS. So here in unassigned computers will appear. Here we will have all the computers that are gonna jump after GPO update force is done on them, and then when we gonna also do another command that is gonna detect the workstations and add them to SUS, they are gonna appear here, and from here you need to move them to a different location. So you can actually create one, add a computer group, and I'm just gonna call it SUS. So from all the unassigned computers, I'm gonna put everything to my SUS container. Of course, here we have this synchronization. We can do synchronize now, and it's gonna synchronize again for quite a long time. Okay, of course, we have the reports here. I'm gonna talk about this as well. We're gonna configure reports, showing reports, and here are all the options regarding SUS. We're gonna go through them as well. To be able to view available updates, you first need to synchronize your server. So for now, I'm just gonna leave it at that without any synchronizations. Let's check what's next on our list. So now we need to create an organizational unit called SUS, which I actually created on my main domain controller, and we're gonna create two GPOs. The first main GPO is gonna be called SUS, and it's gonna be configured in this path. And options to choose. So let's go to our domain controller. We're gonna choose group policy management. We got our WSUS created, organizational unit called WSUS, and of course now we're gonna create two GPOs. So starter GPOs, group policy results. Okay. So we're gonna do it like this. Create a GPO in this domain and link it here. And we're gonna call this okay. So we got added here authenticated user, of course, in this particular GPO. So all the users from the domain are gonna receive this GPO. Here are all the settings. So let's add it. So here we're gonna edit the GPO, and let's see. We need it to go. Computer configuration, then policies, administrative templates, Windows components, and Windows update. Okay, so we are here. And we need to choose configure automatic updates. So we're gonna go inside here. I'm gonna enable this. And these are the options that you can configure for automatic updates. So notify for downloads and auto install, auto download and notify for installations, auto download and schedule for installations, allow local admins to choose settings, auto download, notify to install, notify to restart. So I'm gonna choose the option notify for download and auto install. I'm gonna choose this install during automatic maintenance. So what this option does is when WSUS gives the updates for your workstations, if your workstation receives an update, it won't install it during maintenance hours. So when something is being done on your workstation, somebody is working, those updates are not going to be installed. So it's going to persist for 2 days, and after 2 days the update is going to be installed automatically. So schedule install day. So we got every day. We can pick which day. I'm going to pick every day. Schedule install time. So let's do it maybe around 8 o'clock. And every week is ticked. And we can also install updates for other Microsoft products as well. Okay, we can apply. And okay, so this is the first configuration we have done. So another one is specific intranet Microsoft Update Service locations. So we need to configure this one. I'm gonna enable this. So here, when you set up HTTPS for your SUS, of course, my configuration would look something like that. Select the proxy behavior for Windows Update clients for detecting updates. So this is on default, okay. So basically this is port 8530, so HTTP. As you can see, if you would like to set it up for HTTPS, you just need to change this to HTTPS and change this to port 31. Then apply and OK. Okay, so another important thing that you need to remember about. Well, let's check my SUS. As you can see, it's called backup serve. So I need to change this. Because that's the actual name of my SUS right now. And I'm gonna leave it for now for HTTP. Later on we're gonna configure HTTPS. Okay, so basically we have prepared this GPO, we have configured it. Now we need to configure a second GPO, which is disable dual scan for all workstations or servers. So what is disable dual scan? Disable dual scan is an option that allows you to disable your workstations or servers to pull down the updates straight from Microsoft Windows updates. So when we disable this option, your updates will be coming only from your SUS server, not from Microsoft directly. So we need to disable this option, and to do that we need to add a registry key to every workstation in our domain. So we need to do it through a GPO. Okay, so we're gonna create another GPO. It's gonna be called disable dual scan. Okay, of course, authenticated users. Everybody in the domain. Gonna edit this. Let's go to computer configuration, preferences, Windows settings. Let's check here. I need to check because I don't remember it correctly. Let's check policies, administrative templates, Windows settings, and it's gonna be in Windows settings, so we need to go to computer configuration, policies, and Windows settings. Here we have scripts, startup and shutdown scripts. So we need to open this. We choose startup. So this specific script that I have prepared here. Okay, wait. I need to check because it was somewhere. Oh, here it is. Here is the disable dual scan script. It's in PowerShell. So we're gonna add this script to our startup. we need to go to PowerShell scripts, add script name, so we'll just choose the script, disable dual scan. Of course, you can just go to your hard drive here. You can create like a folder, scripts, go to this folder, move it here, and we're gonna choose this. Gonna choose apply. For this GPO, run scripts in the following order. Run Windows PowerShell scripts first. Okay. And we're gonna do okay. Gonna close it. So now we have like two GPOs. So the first one is the main one, WSUS GPO, that we're gonna also link here to WSUS. Sorry, I'm gonna link it here to WSUS. So we link an existing GPO, we're gonna link WSUS here. And I'm gonna link, of course, to Windows 10, because in here I have my server, here I have my workstations, or in my case, one workstation. And of course, disable dual scan. I'm gonna also link those two GPOs here. So disable dual scan for my workstations and of course for the server. Okay, so we can open up for a moment users and computers from Active Directory. As you can see, in Windows 10 I have a test computer, and here in WSUS I have the backup server, so the main WSUS server. Okay, so the GPOs are created. Let's see what's next. So as a next step, after creating all of those things, you can check what options have been configured for workstations once you actually add a workstation to WSUS. You can go here to HK Local Machine, Software Policies, Microsoft Windows Update, and this Windows Update should appear. This catalog should appear once you add your workstation to WSUS, because if we go right now, let's say I'm gonna open my main server, so this one, the WSUS server. Let's open a registry editor, HK Local Machine, Software Policies, Software Policies, Microsoft Windows. As you can see, we got Windows Update here. Already configured. So the things that we have actually configured for Windows Update. Okay. And of course, we need to check if a disable dual scan has been added to the registry as well. Okay, so we're not gonna check all of this stuff right now because we're not gonna add my workstation or anything to WSUS right now. We need to still configure some things, so we need to configure best practices for IIS, so for the web server. So first thing we need to configure is disable recycling and configure memory limits. So we need to open, I'm gonna close WSUS for now. We're gonna open the web server. Okay. Let's go to application pools, and we have WSUS pool here. We can configure it. So advanced settings, and here we need to change some settings. So let us check, because like it says, WSUS implements an internal cache that retrieves the update metadata from the database. The operation is expensive and very memory intensive. It can cause the IIS application pool that hosts WSUS, known as WSUS pool, to recycle when WSUS pool overruns the default private virtual memory limit. When the pool recycles, the cache is removed and must be rebuilt. It isn't a large problem when clients are undergoing the delta scans, but if you end up in a scan storm scenario, the pool will recycle constantly, and clients will receive errors when you make scan requests, such as HTTP 503 errors. So basically here we have all the required options that we need to set. I'm just gonna put it like this. So we have query length that should be changed to 2000. Okay, maybe I will just save it for now. I'm gonna put it here. Okay, I cannot. Okay. Well, it will have to do. Okay, so what's next? Startup mode on demand, of course. On demand limit 0, no action 5 false. That's alright. Network services 0. Idle time out minutes 0. I'm gonna change that. Terminate false 1. That's okay. 90 30 90 90. That's okay. False. HTTP level true. That's okay. And at the end we have only zeros here. So private memory limit. Private memory limit. I'm gonna change that to 0. So unlimited. Thanks to that, you won't have so many crashes in WSUS. Okay. Regular time interval. I'm gonna change that to 0 as well. So unlimited. And then 0 0. Okay. So we got that covered. Okay. Let's check next thing. What do we have? Check whether compression is enabled if you want to conserve bandwidth. So we will need to go to this path. I see if I can actually. Okay. I won't be able to do it from here. Okay, so let's just open this manually. So Windows System 32, inet srv, and the config. Here we have application host configuration, which we will need to open this. So with a notepad, and here we need to scroll down, and we're gonna search for HTTP. Okay, so let's check. We're gonna search for HTTP compression. Okay, so basically we have this added here, HTTP compression. And we will need to also check registry key, if the registry key is present. So we have this compression here, it's fine, everything is set like it should be. So next we will need to check in our registry. Local machine software, Microsoft Update Services. Update Services, server, setup. And IIS, dynamic compression. Let's check. And we have IIS dynamic compression. Okay. If both of those things, so this thing and this in application hosts, are present, it can be enabled. So this feature can be enabled, the compression can be enabled if those two features are present, and they are present because we checked, because we got this and we got the previous one in the host's config. It can be enabled by running this command and then restarting the WSUS pool application. So we got the command here that needs to be run. I will see if I can actually copy it here. We'll just open CMD. So as you can see, starting enable dynamic compression, enable dynamic compression, setting props, set dynamic compression parameter, leaving set dynamic compression parameter, entering, restarting IIS, and of course everything has been done. So now after this we can close all of this down, and like it said, the SUS poll application needs to be restarted. So let's restart everything here, or we can even stop it and start it again. And okay, and it's fine. Okay, let's see what's up next. So of course we got SUS with SSL setup. So for this we would need to create a self-signed certificate. Like it said here, it isn't ideal because every client would have to trust the certificate, but we can do it with a GPO. And of course, as you can see, this is an example, like I said, the same thing that we configured for HTTP, just we changed to HTTPS, and we change here to port 8531 instead of 30. But we're gonna configure that later on. And of course, what do we have? We'll configure antivirus exclusions. So here are all the exclusions. We can check them up. So if you want to configure all the exclusions in your antivirus, this is the Microsoft antivirus exclusion list. For IIS. And of course, the last thing that remains is installing report viewer. So we need to install report viewer. So before installing the report viewer, we need to download CLR for SQL, which is located here. So right now, if we would want to open our SUS, and we would go to reports, and let's say we wanted to have a report done, we're gonna have this error, of course. We need to download the report viewer. So we're gonna download it. And now we're gonna download CLR. Because without it, the report viewer MSI won't start. Okay, so we got Microsoft SQL Server Service Pack for Feature Pack. Gonna go here and we're gonna look for CLR SQL says CLR types MSI 2.4. It's the one we need to download. I'm gonna install. And after that we can install report viewer. Okay. Now we can open our WSUS. Oh, sorry, it was open already. I'm gonna close everything down. Open it once again. We can do a refresh. Let's go to reports. And now the reports are working like they should. Okay, so we have done quite a lot of stuff here. We have configured our WSUS. Still, we haven't done any synchronization. So that's gonna be next. That's gonna be the next step. We're gonna synchronize everything. Then we're gonna also add our server and our computer to the to WSUS, and we're gonna try to set up some updates for them. But for now, I think I will conclude this video. And the next one, I'm gonna show you how to synchronize everything correctly, how to put all of your workstations or servers into WSUS, how to make them get the updates, and of course how it looks from the view, how implementing those updates looks from the point of view of a everyday user. Okay, so thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and as always, if you want to be a supporter, you can go for it. I will see you in the next video.